computer. Okay. Share screen. No, I'm not sharing screen. I'm just going big. Okay. Um, there we go. Now it's nice and big, and we can kind of look at the. So this is the practice test. Here's all the answers. You want me to just give you the answers? All right. So what I have here is the review for the exam that I emailed out to y'all, and I'm just going to kind of go through it tonight. Okay. So all you got to do is study this one sheet here, and let me see if I can make this smaller. Yeah, that helps a bit, and you'll be set and ready to go. Okay. So ideally, so here's what I would suggest. If you have printed out the practice exam, then here you go. You can just kind of take notes as you go. If you have not printed out the practice exam, what you could do is you could copy down whatever I write down here in notes, like by numbers, and then print out the exam, or just look at the exam online that I emailed you on Monday. I think I might have sent it last week as well, and kind of see how my notes match up with helping you. Okay. All right. So first question at the top here is number one here is absolute value. Okay. And what's the absolute value? Absolute value symbol is these two lines here. And that just means how far is something from zero. That's all it means. Whatever's inside, how far is it from zero? And so in 99% of the time, it'll always be expressed as a positive number. And so absolute value of 6, it's 6 away from 0. The absolute value of -3, it's 3 away from 0. So I'm going to put a little equal sign here so it's real clear what I'm doing here. Okay, it equals 3. Okay. The only trick question is, this is a rare case where you get a teacher that gets a little carried away and they go, what's the negative absolute value of -9? Okay. Well, the absolute value of -9 is just 9, but it's asking for the negative of that. So in that case, that's why it's a -9 in this case, because they put a little trick in front of it, a negative. Okay. All right. I'm going to look at number 5 here. I'm just going to do like the odds. Okay. If it's 42 degrees below 0, but the temperature will increase by 39 degrees by the end of the day, what will the temperature be at the end of the day? Show your calculation and answer. Okay. So I take my microphone here and get it nice and close. So it's 42 degrees. It's below 0, minus 42 degrees. Okay. Below 0, but the temperature increases. So that's plus 39 degrees. Okay. So if if it's minus 32, you remember when you're adding integers that are opposites, like minus and a plus, just subtract and keep the sign of the greater number. So 42 minus 39 is 3. 42 is the greater number, so it's minus 3 degrees. Okay. So that's how I would do number 5. So what you could do is, if you don't have the test in front of you, but you're taking notes, just write number 5, because you'll be able to match this up, and then write down my notes on your notes. And that's all messed up there because I should rewrite it here. It's 42 minus 39. The reason it's all messed up is because I had to borrow. You couldn't subtract 9 from 2, so I had to borrow from the 4. Okay. Let's go on. Hopefully I gave you time to copy that down. Number 6, and by the way, if you're wondering, hey teacher, how come you're not doing all of them? Because what I'm doing is at least one in each type of problem, so that if you know how to do this one, then you know how to do the one before it and the one after it. Okay. So that's why I'm kind of skipping a little bit. All right. Number 7 here is plot each pair of numbers on the line and then circle the larger one in the box between the numbers, right greater than or less than. On your exam number 2, which is worth 100 points, you'll only be asked one question. You won't be able to do all of this, but you'll just be asked which one's greater or something. But we've got minus 12 sevenths. Okay. And that is, if I kind of turn that into a fraction, that's minus 7 goes into 12, 1, and there's 5 12ths. Okay, that's like minus 1 and 5 sevenths, excuse me, okay, as a fraction. Minus 12 sevenths is like minus 1 and 5 sevenths, okay? And, you know, that would be like right here. Yeah, that's 12 sevenths. Minus 13, or 13 over 4. Well, we know that a positive is greater than a negative. So right off the bat, we don't even have to do anything on the line, but that's where they'd be on the number line, okay? Here's 0, positive 13 over 4. This is greater. Remember, the alligator, the open mouth faces the bigger number, because sometimes it's pointing the other direction. The open mouth of the alligator faces the greater number. Okay. Number 9 here, again, it's the same type of problem. So on your notes, you could write number 9, and you have time to actually copy the problem. They want to know which one's greater, okay? And looking at 35 over 4 versus 25 over 3, it might be hard to figure that out. But if I change it into a mixed number, 4 goes into 35, 8, and so it's 2/4, which reduces down to 8.5, okay? If I change 25 over 3 into a mixed number, 3 goes into 25 8 times, and there's 1/3 left over. Okay, now it's pretty easy. 8.5 is bigger than 8 1/3, so the sign goes to the left, facing the number to the left, okay? So that's how you would figure out, if they ask you on the test, which is greater, this improper fraction or this improper fraction, turn them into mixed, and then it becomes really obvious, much more obvious, I should say, which is greater. All right. Problems number 10 through like 25 or so are all have to do with adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing integers, which we learned are positive and negative numbers, okay? And so the rule, which is in your notes, by the way, which if I were you, I would go over your notes that you've taken on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers, and really how to do all these concepts. I'd read through your notes that you've taken, and then also really review. The main thing is to really review this paper, okay? So I'm adding opposite integers, a plus, 1, a minus. So the rule is to subtract and then keep the sign of the greater number, which in this case is a plus, okay? Negative number 12, I know it's not odd, but it's not every other one, but negative 33 plus 19. I have opposite signs, so I subtract and keep the sign of the greater number. In this case, it's negative 33, so it's negative 14 is my answer, okay? Number 13, I have a minus 13 minus a minus 3. And we learned when it's in parentheses like this, these curved things are called parentheses, a double minus becomes a positive. So that means that this is now negative 13 plus 3. Subtract 3 from 13, we get 10. Keep the sign of the greater number, okay? So that's those. Hopefully that's pretty much kind of review for you all. Just pausing for a moment for anybody who's kind of scrambling to copy that down. Oh, by the way, just for your practice, for your review for the test, you see how there's all these problems here on this first page here, okay? All of the answers are on the last page of the document that I sent you, okay? So answers to preview questions, they're all the answers for every single one of them are here, so you can check your answers. So this is the last page of that document I emailed you on Monday morning, and I think as well on Friday of last week. And if for some reason you can't find it, just send me an email and say, hey, I need that review test with the answers. Can you send that to me? And I shall do that. All right. Let's talk about some more types of problems. I'm going to talk to you about number 17 here. So if you're trying to scramble and write it all down, I'll give you 20 seconds here to copy down the problem. It was in parentheses minus 23 plus, in parentheses, negative 3 plus 12 minus, in parentheses, a minus 19 plus minus 9. Okay, that's the original problem. Okay. And sorry. Okay.
So they're all minuses, so it would carry.
Uh-huh. And
It
we
would be negative 26 plus 12 be 36, 37, 38 minus 19.
uh-huh. Okay. All right. So there are two ways to do this, one step at a time, which you were kind of doing here is I got negative 26. I put these two together to negative 26. And then I said minus 14. Now, why did I do this? Where did I get the minus 14? I'm lost here. Wonder why I said that. That makes no sense. Sorry, guys. I'm kind of confused as to where I got this. So forget that for a second, okay? Um, so we got plus 12. Okay, so this really should say plus 12. That's what this should say. Okay. All right, that's a plus. Okay, plus, now we have a minus, double minus becomes a plus 19. Um, so here's what I did. Yeah, I somehow totally messed up on this example here. I have no idea what's going on here. So sorry, folks. You're copying that down there. All right, let's just do it one step at a time. So I've got negative 26, and I have a plus 12 plus 19. So 12 plus 19 is 29, 30, 31. So this would be a 31. Okay, that's a 31. Plus a negative 9. So that's really like subtracting 9 from 31 would be 21 plus 1 is 22. So that gives you 22. Okay. So I have, make sure I just did all this right. Plus 30. What did I do here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my like terms, you have 12 and 22, which gives me 32, 34, and then negative 26. So minus 26, okay? So that's kind of the long way to do it, is to go one step at a time and kind of rewrite things underneath. The short way to do it, which I mentioned to you guys before, is to do this. Take all of your kind of your like terms and do them first, like all your pluses first, okay? So I've got 4 plus 3 is 7. This becomes a plus, 8, 9, 10. That's a negative, so I'm going to leave that alone. That's a negative, I'm going to leave that alone. And that's a positive, so I got 13. I took all my positives, okay? And I just added them all up. And then I take my negatives that are left over. So if I kind of cross this out, so you can kind of visually see here, did that, I did that, and I did that. Okay, so what's left? Plus minus 6 and minus 7 is a minus 13. Okay, see how I did that? Combine, I put my minuses all together, and I put my pluses all together, equals 0. Okay. So that's kind of that's the shortcut when you get these longer ones, like again, this number 16 here. I would do the shortcut method. I would combine all my pluses first and put a total there, and all my minuses, and then go that way. It's just easier. You don't have to think of as many things and remember as many things, and make sure you wrote as many things down, right? Okay. All right. Let's look at number 19 here. And it's 23 over 4 divided by a negative 13 over 11. Now I'm going to pause here for a second. And the rule we learned when it has to do with dividing and multiplying was that if you have a plus times a plus, it's going to equal a plus. If you have a plus times a minus, it's going to equal a minus. And if you have a minus times a plus, times a minus, excuse me, it will equal a plus. So realistically, the rule is that when we're dividing and when we're multiplying, it's always a plus, except for one case. And that one case is when the signs are opposite, okay? When the signs are opposite in division and in multiplication, the answer is negative. All right. So in my example here, just thinking this thing through, I've got a plus 23 over 4 divided by a minus So that tells me that my signs are opposite, which means my answer is going to be a negative. Okay. And then from there, you could just punch it in your calculator using your calculator, 23 over 4 divided by 13 over 11. And that'll give you a mixed number, improper fraction, which you can press on the little button that will switch it to a, here, I'll show you it once again on my calculator. Okay. You can press on the little button to switch it into that mixed fraction into a improper fraction into a mixed. And I'm trying to find that button. Oh, it's right here. So you would do second, and then you would do this little button right here that looks like it's got a fraction and a mixed fraction. So it's this little button right here. Okay, that will convert a improper fraction into a mixed fraction like 4 and 45 over 52s. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to do the whole thing here. I'm just going to talk you through a couple more. 20, negative 19 thirds times a positive number. Already in my mind, I know I'm going to have a negative answer. And I'm good because it's a minus times a plus. The next one, I have a minus 9 twos divided by a minus. Already I have two minuses, so I'm going to have a plus. That's going to be a plus answer. And I just punch the numbers in for calculating, okay? And again, now in this case, we're getting into the rules, order of operations a little bit. You remember how when we were adding and subtracting, we could just do all the positives first? You can't when you're multiplying. You got to go from left to right, okay? So I would do on this one here, I'll just do the next one down here. I've got 4 times 3 is 12, times a negative 2 is a negative 24, times a 5 would give me a negative number, times another number gives me negative 720. So just multiplying from left to right would give me a negative 720. Okay. And again, for all of these practice ones, you've got an answering sheet that'll tell you all the answers. All right. I'm going to move on to the next type of problem that you will see on the second exam here. And so I want to illustrate this. Okay. So you'll find a number of these on the test, and I want to just talk this one through. So it says you'll use the table to answer questions 31 through 33. You have just separated your jar of beads into colors. You have listed the color buttons you have in the jar. So I've got buttons here. I've got a jar, and it's got 24 red buttons, and it's got 18 blue buttons, etc. Okay. So if you're kind of frantically trying to copy these down here, I'm kind of pausing and stalling here for you a little bit. And realistically, just copy down the box here, the chart here, okay? All right. Now, this is where I probably should tell a funny joke. Like, no, I won't tell a joke. All right, so I'm going to talk you through this a little bit. So I'm going to look at the questions now. Find the percent for the category labeled blue, round to the nearest tenth. All right, so it wants to know what percent of all of these buttons, we're calling beads, all these beads, the blue is 18, okay? So we need to know, it's asking, what is the percent of all the blue ones? What percent is that of the whole, okay, here? So in order to find out what percent it is, I got to add up all these numbers, okay? And there's 75 total. So I put the amount that they're asking divided by the total, that gives you your percent. I just taught this last hour in my 70 class, okay? The part over the whole gives you the percent, okay? And so if I divide 18, punch it in my calculator, divided by 75, I'm going to get 0.24, okay? And that's a decimal. Move the decimal 2 places to the right, and it's 24%, okay? So now I want to look back at my question here. I'm going to draw a little arrow here to the question. I'm just making sure that I visually go, it says round to the nearest tenth. It's not 24.179 or anything like that. It's just 24 even. So I didn't round it to anything because I didn't have to, okay? Look at question 32. Find the percent for the category labeled yellow, round to the nearest tenth. So I'm underlining this, okay? It does want it to the 10th. Yellow is 15. 15 is the part divided by the whole, which is 75, gets me, if I take my calculator here, and I've got, what did I say it was? We're looking for 15 divided by 75. 15 divided by 75 equals 0.2, okay? Which is 0.2, which would really be the same as writing 0.20, right? That's the same thing. If I move my decimal point 2 places, it's 20%, okay? And there aren't other numbers here that I need to round to the 10th place. There are no others, okay? So that's how you would do when you're on the exam and they give you a group of numbers and they ask you what percent is a certain number, okay, of all of them. Add up all the numbers first, get a total, and then divide the percent they're asking for, the number, the color they're asking for, whatever it is, by the total, get a decimal, change the decimal to percent, and you are in the money, as they say. You've got it done, okay? You're doing fine. Okay, yeah, the next one is the same example. I'm gonna move on to the next type of question, which is, where did it go here? What did I do here? I seem to be missing my 15, 16, 17, 20. Did we do most of it? Yeah. Seem to be missing something. Oh, there it is. Sorry. It was the other questions. There they are. Got out of order here. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So in figure 1, so I'm looking at number 37 here, okay? And by the way, on your practice test, if you see something that's asking for the sector angle, okay, the angle of something like a 90-degree angle, or cross it out, because that's not gonna be on the exam, okay? All right, so figure 37 says, number 37 says, figure 2, from figure 2, what amount of money does the Powers family spend on transportation and insurance? Okay, so it wants to know from figure 1, what amount is spent on transportation and insurance. So this is what you're going to be given here. Okay, all right, this is the Powell family. Okay, and it asks for transportation, which is 13%, and insurance, which is way down here at 7. That's a 7%. It's a little hard to read. Let me write it over here, 7%. That's better, 7%. Okay, so they want to know, the question was, going back to my question, sorry folks, what amount of money does the Powers family spend on transportation and insurance? So here's what you do. Transportation is 13, insurance is 7. Add those two together, that's 20%. Okay, that's the two percentages. Multiply 20%, which is 0.20, times the total amount of their monthly budget, which is 4,200. That will give you 840. So my answer is $840 is spent on insurance and transportation. Okay, so kind of the skill we're working on is taking a percent of a whole. Okay, whatever. If they ask you, let's do another one. Same idea here. Let's take. Let's see. In figure 1, okay, see this next one here, like 30. What amount of money does the Powers family spend on their rent and utilities? I'm going to look at my chart. I'm going to go, okay, rent is 32% plus utilities is 9%. Okay. All right. So 32% plus 9% is 39. That's 41%, which is 0.41 times 4,200. Okay. So that's how I do it. 0.41 times 4,200. That's how I would figure out how much is spent on rent and utilities. Okay. So I'm kind of just illustrating that. And again, you have all of the answers for those types of questions. All right. All right. So I think I'm going to move on to the next kind of question. Let's talk about hot dogs here for a minute. Okay. It's getting, somebody's getting hungry. All right. Question number 40 here from figure 2. Now I circled it because, these other questions were from figure 1. Okay. I'm just really modeling for you smart test taking skills. I'm making sure I'm looking at the right figure. Okay. The right chart or diagram. From figure 2, how much did the Hogan's hot dog stand earn during the months of July through September if each hot dog sold for a 185? Okay, so they want to know July through September, and each one sells for $1.85. All right, let me show you the chart. Okay, now that I've showed you the question here. So here is my wonderful hot dog chart. Okay, and they wanted to know from July through September how much money they made, right? So let's see. Yeah, how much did they earn during this time period? All right. So I'm looking at my chart. For each hot dog, it's $1.85. Okay. That's how much it is per. This little symbol in the chart equals, it says in the heading here, okay. Okay. It says it's 500 hot dogs. That's 500 hot dogs for each symbol here. All right. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 500. Okay. See what I did there? Each one is worth 500. I got 8 of them. 8 times 500 is 4,000. Okay. So there's 4,000 hot dogs sold in that time period. Each one sells for $1.85. So if I do the math, I get 7,400. Okay. That's how much money was made selling hot dogs. So July through September, July, August, September, 3 months, and I made $7,400. Okay. So that's kind of an example of how to read a chart, which is one of the skills they want you to learn in this class, is just looking at a data in a chart and figuring out what that means and being able to kind of calculate it out. All right. Let's look at another chart, another type of chart. By the way, this one here, I'm going to tell you quite honestly, is really kind of a confusing chart. So I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible. Okay. All right. Let's look at number 43 here. Okay. Yeah. From figure 3. And again, I'm circling it, telling myself, okay, make sure you look at the right chart. From figure 3, Olana earns 167 for each mile she travels. Okay. You ever get reimbursed for travel? I had a job once where I had to drive to Olympia, and they reimbursed me for a certain amount of cents per mile I drove. So anyway, if she travels from Spokane to Everett, and then from Everett to Tacoma, and then to Yakima, how much was she paid for mileage? Okay, so it's got all these places she's traveling. I'm going to show you the chart and try to explain it to you. Here is this lovely chart. And all right, so I'm going to kind of try to explain to you what's going on here. So, all right. So first of all, this is what the question asks. This is Spokane here, okay, to Everett. That was their first trip. She went from Spokane to Everett. Then she went from Everett, I'll say EV, okay, to Tacoma. And then she went from Tacoma to Yakima. It's always windy in Yakima in the summer, very, very windy. Okay. But I hear there's a hamburger place I've never eaten there that like you can get like the biggest hamburgers in all of Eastern Washington at some hamburger place in Yakima. All right. Sorry for that little side commercial there. Okay. So anyway, so it says she went from Spokane to Everett. So here's how you kind of figure out this thing. You go looking at the chart here. I'm in Spokane, right? I look for the blank space. That's my starting space. So if they said we're starting at Spokane, go to Spokane and look for the blank space. Okay. If they said you started at Everett to Tacoma, I look for Everett, and here's the blank space. Here's the starting place, Everett. Okay. So I'm going to look at what they asked. They said you went from Spokane to Everett. From Spokane, starting place, to Everett is this way. Okay. You see, I started here in Spokane. I drove to Everett. That's 315 miles. I know the chart's kind of weird how this works, but this is just how to read. I'm just telling you how to read this chart for the test. Okay. So 315 miles. I wrote 315 here. I'll write it again. 315. That's her first leg of the trip. Okay. Then says she's in Everett here. Okay. She goes from Everett to Tacoma. Okay. That was the second part of her trip. So I start in Everett. Here's the blank space starting in Everett all the way to Tacoma is 62 miles. So I'm going to write down 62 miles here. Then she went from Tacoma, okay, Tacoma, started Tacoma. There's my blank space here, right here. Tacoma to Yakima, 156 miles. So I'm going to write 156. Okay. I'm going to add all those miles up, okay? And what I'll get is she traveled total miles, 533 miles. All right. It says in the question, it says, if I kind of flip back to the question here, guys, sorry for the abrupt change here, okay? All right, what's the total miles traveled? That's the total miles, okay? If it asks you from the question, how much did she get reimbursed? You know, how much money did she get back? Okay, they pay her. Well, it's in the questions 43. Here it is. It's this one right here. It says that she gets $100.67 for each mile. She gets this much back. They pay her for each mile. So if I multiply $1.67 times my total, that will give me my amount she's going to get back in money. Okay. So that's how to interpret this very confusing chart. I'm just going to be flat out honest with you. This particular chart is kind of confusing. Just know that whatever it says you're starting, go to that city on the chart and find the blank space and start there. And then find the next city they're asking for. So if it was from Seattle to Tacoma, you would write down it's 34 miles. Okay. All right. Now, let's see here. I think I have another type of question. I think we're done. One more type of question here, guys. How are we doing for time? We're doing great. All right, let's look at this number 47 here, okay? It says use the compound interest table. All right, if Gente invests $9,000, that's really important that we keep this in mind. Gente is investing $9,000 at an interest rate of 3% for 11 years. How much will her investment be worth at the end of the period? Okay. All right. So she's investing, I want you to remember, $9,000 at 3% for 11 years. So here's what you're going to see on your exam. Okay. You're going to see this chart right, these charts right here. And you're going to go, oh no, it's a lot of charts. Which one do I have to use? Okay. Well, there's one that's for 2.5%. There's one that's for 3.5%, 4%. There's a chart for all these different kinds of percentages. We only need this one right here. Okay. All right. Let's just kind of carefully look at the chart here. Okay. It says on this chart, this is for years. These are the years column. We've got totals, okay, that they would get in money. But this is really important that you notice this. If you invested $1,000, that's what the chart says. Okay, I want you to forget, I'm going to cover up the 9 for a second here. In this chart at 3%, $1,000, okay, after 3 years, you would have $1,092.73. At 5 years, if you only invested $1,000, you would have $1,159.27. Okay, that's with the 3% chart. However, the question asked us, what if that person invested Gente invested $9,000? Remember that in the original question? Okay, if I pull that right in front of us again here, there it is. She invested $9,000 with the 3% interest rate for 11 years. Okay. So looking at my chart, that's 9 times 1,000. Okay. So 9 times 3% for 11 years, it'd be 9,000 times it. So we would have to multiply this answer right here, $1,384, 11 years. Okay, stay with me, guys. We're almost done here. I know it's hard to concentrate here. We're almost done. So she's got, I'm gonna multiply that answer, 1,384.23 times 9, because it's 9,000. It's not just 1,000. Okay, and that would give me an answer. That would be the correct answer. Okay, so the more money you invest, the more money you make. I suppose that makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. So that's, you'll run into one of those, at least one of those on the exam. And so I'm just going to kind of review what I want you to do so you don't stress in that type of question. Okay. Like look at number 48 here. Use the compound interest table. If Lisbeth invests 18,000 at an interest rate of 5.5% for 7 years, I'm going to go to my charts. Okay. I'm going to find the one that's 5.5%, and it's this one right here. Okay. And it said she invested 18,000. Okay. 1,000 is this much. And it was, the question said for 7 years. So we'll go down to here to 7 years. Here is at 5.5% for 7 years. See the 7 years here? So is this much. But she invested 18,000. So I'm going to take that number times 18, and that will give me how much she made. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you were paying good attention here, first of all, congratulations, because that's a lot of things to kind of cover here. But I hope this was helpful. I'm going to switch my screen here if I can get things to work here. How about escape? How about video? How about camera? Yeah, there I am. Oops, I switched to the wrong camera. Well, hang on a second. Yes. One of these days, I'm going to get smart and go get a USB thing that plugs into all kinds of things, and I will. There we go. Now I'm in the right camera. All right, folks, this is your chance to stop and go, okay, I've got a couple of questions about that. Or, I can talk about one again. If you have a particular one you have a question on, I noticed, Zara, you kind of had a question about explaining one again at 7:44, which was a minute ago. Hopefully I went over it again so you got it the second time. If not, let me know and I will, I'll try to review.
So
I have a question, and it's just pertaining to like the due date. So I know we do the review of the exam before we take our exam. So is our exam due tomorrow or is it due on the 28th? Because Canvas has it said like stated that it's due on the 28th, along with our book homework. Is that
Right.
right or wrong?
So what is today's date? I'm looking at the calendar.
Today's the 23rd.
23rd. Really? It says 28, 24, 25, 27. What is it, like Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically anytime this week, okay? You want to try to do it anytime this week. That would be the kind of the short answer to that. Yeah, that's Sunday. So yeah, so somebody else, Olivia asked, it'd be smart to do the exam after this Zoom, like right afterwards. I guess that depends. If you feel like, okay, you know what? If you feel like, hey, after listening to that, it's all fresh in my mind, I get all that, and you want to do it right now, you may do that. That's fine.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking too, because it's already fresh in my head and we're going through everything.